What you're about to hear was never meant to be read out loud, and that is exactly why it matters. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because buried inside newly unsealed court filings are words so direct, so specific, and so damaging that they completely flip the public narrative on its head. This is not speculation. This is not rumor. This is sworn legal language. And once you hear how these interrogatories describe what really happened behind the scenes, you will understand why one side is suddenly very quiet and why this case is far from over. Do not skip this, because every single sentence that follows builds to something bigger. And once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. What you are about to hear did not come from commentary or opinion or online chatter. It came from inside the courtroom, from formal interrogatories written by lawyers who understand that every word matters, because these are not tweets or interviews. These are sworn responses that will be judged line by line later. And when you read them together, a very different picture begins to emerge, one that explains why public sentiment shifted, why the narrative collapsed, and why the accusation of some hidden coordinated campaign simply does not survive contact with the timeline. Because long before August, long before any lawsuit, long before anyone on YouTube weighed in, the controversy was already brewing in plain sight, driven by visible public actions that audiences reacted to in real time. And this is critical, because the question at the heart of this case is not whether criticism existed, but whether that criticism was manufactured or organic. And when you trace it step by step, it becomes impossible to ignore that the public reaction followed events, not instructions. The casting announcement alone sparked debate months earlier, with audiences questioning fit, tone, and authenticity. And when early images surfaced of wardrobe choices, those reactions intensified, not because anyone told people to be upset, but because they recognized something that felt disconnected from the source material and the character as written. And those discussions unfolded openly across platforms with no coordination, only amplification, as algorithms do what they always do: elevate what people are already engaging with. And as filming progressed, reports of on-set tension surfaced, not through leaks, but through observable behavior, including public unfollowing patterns, marketing absences, and press inconsistencies that viewers noticed and questioned on their own. Because audiences are not passive, they compare, they track, they remember. And when promotional events began, the gap widened, with one lead present everywhere and the other conspicuously absent, fueling speculation that the press then chased, because controversy attracts clicks, and clicks drive coverage. And when coverage increases, commentary follows, not because of orchestration, but because visibility creates demand. And as marketing campaign unfolded, criticism sharpened due to tone choices that clashed with the film's subject matter, choices that were made publicly and defended publicly, and therefore judged publicly, including brand tie-ins that many perceived as mismatched and uncomfortable. And those reactions were immediate, widespread, and unscripted. And when interview clips circulated, they circulated because people shared them, not because someone pushed a button behind the scenes. And this matters because organic backlash is defined by spontaneity, diversity of sources, and unpredictability, all of which were present here, as creators, journalists, and everyday viewers independently expressed discomfort, confusion, or criticism, each adding their own perspective. And as the release date approached, the narrative did not stabilize, it fragmented, with different criticisms emerging simultaneously: wardrobe, tone, press behavior, marketing strategy, and cast dynamics, all discussed in parallel. And when litigation entered the picture, the spotlight intensified, not because it created interest, but because it escalated an existing one. And once allegations were tied to public filings, the conversation shifted again as audiences examined discrepancies, timelines, and contradictions, comparing claims against previously visible behavior. And that scrutiny did not require direction, it required curiosity and skepticism, which the internet has in abundance. And when major media coverage arrived, it did not close the debate, it widened it, because selective presentation invites counter-analysis. And when additional information surfaced, including past interviews, past statements, and past promotional material, audiences connected dots that had been available all along. And this is where the idea of mitigation becomes relevant, because public perception is not static. It responds to ongoing choices. And when those choices continue to reinforce earlier criticism, the perception deepens. And when opportunities are declined, explanations are offered publicly, and branding continues unabated. The narrative evolves again, and at every stage, the through line remains visibility, choice, reaction, consequence. Not instruction, not coordination, not secrecy, but cause and effect played out in public view. And this is why the interrogatory responses emphasize chronology, because chronology dismantles conspiracy. It shows that criticism did not suddenly appear. It accumulated, it layered, it grew as new information entered the public sphere, and as responses failed to address core concerns. And when legal tactics expanded into broad information requests and public pressure campaigns, that too became part of the story, because audiences react not only to what is said, but how it is handled. And when power appears to be used to silence rather than clarify, it often backfires, increasing interest and skepticism rather than resolving it. And this is not unique to this case. It is a pattern seen repeatedly when public figures engage controversy while attempting to control narrative outcomes. And the reason this matters now is because the interrogatories do not argue feelings, they argue facts, observable events, documented actions, and logical inferences drawn from them. And they place responsibility not on anonymous actors, but on choices made by named individuals and their representatives, choices that were visible, recorded, and discussed long before any claim of retaliation emerged. And when you step back and look at it holistically, the idea that thousands of independent reactions across platforms, languages, and communities were secretly coordinated collapses under its own weight, because organic reaction is messy, inconsistent, and sometimes unfair, but it is real, and it leaves fingerprints everywhere, which is exactly what we see here, a trail of posts, clips, articles, and commentary stretching back months, each responding to the moment before it and setting the stage for the next. And that is why these documents matter, because they anchor the discussion in sequence, not sentiment. And sequence tells a story that cannot be easily rewritten once it is already unfolded in front of everyone watching. As the discussion moves deeper into what followed the initial wave of attention, the focus shifts to how narratives solidify in public space, and why attempts to reframe them often arrive too late. Because once audiences believe they have witnessed something unfold in real time, they resist being told it happened differently later. And that resistance grows stronger when official statements appear to contradict previously visible behavior. And this is where the second phase of the controversy takes shape, because after the early reactions, the situation did not cool down, it accelerated, driven by continued exposure, continued promotion, and continued commentary. And each new appearance, interview, or announcement became another data point for viewers to evaluate, and many did so independently, reaching similar conclusions, not because they were guided, but because they were responding to the same stimuli. And this convergence of opinion is often misinterpreted as coordination, when in reality, it is.
And those questions grew louder when the responses appeared defensive rather than explanatory. And when legal strategies spilled into public view, they became part of the narrative rather than a solution to it. Because legal action in high visibility disputes does not occur in a vacuum. It interacts with public perception, amplifying scrutiny rather than silencing it. And this is especially true when those actions are perceived as expansive or aggressive, because they draw attention to themselves and invite interpretation. And when observers believe that legal tools are being used to discourage discussion rather than resolve specific claims, the reaction often intensifies, and that intensification feeds back into media coverage, creating a loop that no one fully controls. And throughout this phase, the absence of certain voices at key moments spoke as loudly as the presence of others, because silence in the face of growing debate is rarely neutral. It is interpreted in many ways, sometimes as strategy, sometimes as uncertainty, sometimes as calculation, and each interpretation adds another layer to the public story. And when statements finally arrive after long delays, they are weighed against everything that came before them and judged not only on content, but timing and consistency. And if they do not align with prior actions, they struggle to regain trust. And this is where mitigation enters the conversation. Because public figures are not passive recipients of attention, they make choices about engagement, tone, and prioritization, and those choices influence outcomes. And when opportunities to clarify, contextualize, or recalibrate are declined, the resulting perception is not imposed, it is allowed to form. And once formed, it is difficult to undo. And this difficulty is compounded when personal branding continues at full speed alongside serious allegations, because the contrast between lighthearted promotion and weighty subject matter can feel jarring to audiences who expect alignment between message and medium. And when that alignment is missing, criticism grows, not because people are instructed to criticize, but because they sense a disconnect. And that sense spreads quickly in digital spaces, where reaction is instantaneous and visible. And as more historical material resurfaces, interviews, statements, promotional clips, they are reinterpreted through the lens of current events, not because history has changed, but because context has. And this retrospective analysis is another hallmark of organic public response, because people naturally reassess past information when new information emerges. And that reassessment is rarely charitable when trust has eroded. And as these cycles repeat, the narrative becomes self-reinforcing, not through manipulation, but through accumulation, with each new piece of information fitting into an already established frame. And this is why efforts to attribute the entire arc to a single source or strategy ring hollow, because they ignore the complex interplay between visibility, choice, reaction, and consequence that defines modern public discourse. And as the interrogatory responses lay out this sequence, they are not crafting a story, they are pointing to one that already exists, documented across platforms, timelines, and public records. And when viewed in totality, it reveals a pattern that is far more mundane and far more powerful than conspiracy, because it shows how easily perception can shift when actions do not align with expectations, and how difficult it is to reverse that shift once it has taken hold. And this understanding is crucial going forward, because it reframes the debate away from who controlled the conversation and toward who influenced it through their own decisions. And that distinction matters, because influence is inevitable, but control is an illusion, especially in an environment where millions of independent observers participate simultaneously. And that is the reality these documents quietly underscore, without spectacle, without exaggeration, simply by walking through what happened when and how the public responded step by step, and so the outcome became unavoidable. In conclusion, the unsealed interrogatories reveal a clear sequence of actions, reactions, and consequences that shaped public perception in ways that cannot be easily attributed to coordination or manipulation, but instead reflect the natural dynamics of visibility and audience response throughout this entire saga. The timeline from early casting announcements, wardrobe choices on set, behavior, marketing strategies, and public appearances shows that criticism emerged organically as viewers observed inconsistencies, conflicts, and decisions that seemed misaligned with expectations. Each new public